Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with the Haunted Carousel. Chapter 16, Kidnapped Car. Well, I don't know if missing is the right word, the clerk replied cautiously, but it does seem as though she hasn't returned to the hotel. Seeing Nancy's dismayed look, he went on. Tell you what, the relief clerk, the one who must have taken down the message, will be coming on duty shortly. He can tell you more about it than I can. The desk clerk smiled reassuringly. Yes, of course, I'll wait for him, Nancy said, realizing nothing could be done until then. She went and sat next to Ned on a sofa amid the lobby's potted palms and tried to curb her impatience. Finally, after 10 long minutes, a dark-haired young man walked behind the counter, buttoning his uniform jacket. As Nancy rose and walked to the desk, she kept her fingers crossed. It turned out she was in luck. The young man had a good memory. Sure, I remember writing down that message, he recalled. Mrs. Harrod dictated it to me. Some man had called her just a couple of minutes before. Did the caller leave his name? Nancy inquired. No, but he rung her room and got no answer, so his call was switched here to the desk. It was about the girl whose name is on the message. Joy Trent. The clerk pointed to the slip of paper on the Marlboro counter. Do I tell me what the caller wanted? No, he said that if Miss Harrod wanted some information about this Joy Trent, she should meet him at the airport coffee shop. That he'd wait for her for exactly 1 hour, and she should look for a man with a mustache and a cane. The desk clerk went on to relate that just as he had hung up before taking the call, Mrs. Harrod herself had come walking into the lobby. I told her what the man had said, and it seemed to make her very happy. That's when she dictated this message to me. I stuck it in her room slot as a reminder. Then she turned right around and left the hotel again. Since her room key is still here, I guess she never came back. Thanks so much for your help, Nancy smiled at the desk clerk, trying not to show her worry. Then she went back to the sofa to tell Ned what she had learned. We better get out to the airport, said Ned. Nancy nodded, and they hurried outside the car. The airport was not far from River Heights, but in the rush hour traffic, they seemed to be going agonizingly slow. After Ned had parked his car in the airport lot, the two young people quickly made their way to the coffee shop inside their air terminal. There was a serving counter and small tables grouped around the shop's glass window walls. Aside from a middle-aged woman nibbling a sandwich at one of the tables, the place was empty. As Nancy and Ned hesitated uncertainly, a smile-kind-looking woman in a waitress uniform emerged from the kitchen. She was carrying some boxes, which she put under the counter. Can I help you people? In response, Nancy described Rose Harrod and the time she had presumably come into the coffee shop yesterday. The waitress nodded promptly with a look of interest. Yes, I remember her. It was almost as quiet as today. She came in, looked around, and went right to that table over there. The waitress pointed. Some guy was sitting there. Must have been waiting for her, I guess. Anyhow, he ordered a fresh cup of coffee for himself and a cup for her, and they began talking. This man she met, Nancy interrupted. Can you describe him? Yeah, he was like a skinny old guy, had a mustache and glasses and a hook nose. Oh, and I remember he had a cane. Please, go on. Well, the next time I looked that way, the lady had her elbows on the table and she was holding herself in her head in her hands. She looked real sick. Nancy exchanged a startled glance with Ned, who asked the waitress, sick enough to need medical attention? Sure, she looked that way to me. The old guy threw some bills on the table and then he left. She was so wobbly, he had to help her walk. Did anyone send for an ambulance? Nancy inquired. No, I could see right through the glass. A big fat guy with long blonde hair and a beard came up and offered to help. He was holding the lady on one side. I ran to give the old man his change and asked if I should call a doctor. What did he say? He said he was a doctor himself and he'd take her out for some fresh air. The waitress shrugged, so they walked her out of the building, and that's the last I saw of them. Is that what you're looking for? How come you're looking for her, dear? Was the lady a relative of yours? No, just a friend, but she never returned to her hotel, so it's quite worrisome. The waitress clucked sympathetically. Nancy thanked her for her information and went back out in the parking lot with Ned. I hate to say this, Nancy, but sounds like Mrs. Harrod was drugged, Ned commented. It's just what I'm afraid of. The man she could have easily slipped something into her coffee. Nancy shaded her eyes as she gazed out at the row of parked cars. Ned, Rose Harrod's car was a clean silver two-door sedan. I don't know what make, but I'm sure I'll recognize it. Let's see if it's still in the lot. After several minutes of searching, Nancy sighed. Well, I've never realized it before, but silver has got to be the most popular car color. Let's talk to the parking lot attendant, Ned suggested. Yes, but maybe he'll surrender, Nancy said. Well, he was on duty this time yesterday. The attendant was reading a newspaper in his booth. He was a chubby man, about 50 years old, and was a retired policeman. When Nancy asked about Mrs. Harrod, he immediately recalled seeing two men bring her into the lot from the air terminal the day before. Reason I remember is she drove in here in a nice silver-looking car, and then 10 or 15 minutes later, she comes out with two guys having to hold her up on her feet, and then she leaves in their car instead of her own. Of course, I could see she'd been taking an ill, but even so, it seemed kind of odd. Did you talk to them at all? Well, they drove up to pay me. I asked her if everything was okay, or at least I tried to. I mean, about leaving her in her car and all. She was too sick and woozy to give me a straight answer, but the old guy, glasses and mustache, said he was a doctor who was taking her to the hospital. Nancy said, do you remember what kind of car he was driving? Yeah, beat-up black station wagon. That seemed funny, too, because I figured a doctor would be driving a better car than that. So I even wrote down the license plate number, just in case. I got it right here. Good for you. Nancy jotted down the information to which the parking lot attendant supplied and thanked him and hurried to the nearest public telephone with Ned. Nancy called Police Chief McGinnis and gave him the description and license plate number of the station wagon. She asked if he could trace the registration of all the cop cars to keep a lookout for it. Will do, Nancy. I'll call as soon as I have anything, Chief McGinnis promised. After hanging up, Nancy said, would you like to come to dinner with me, Ned? There's nothing more we can do for this time being, and I'm sure you must be as hungry as I am. Sounds good to me, Ned replied with a grin. Soon they were on their way to the Drews' house. Hannah Gruen was just about to serve dinner. The motherly housekeeper set another place for Ned. The two young people joined her and Mrs. Drew for dinner. Nancy had just finished her shrimp cocktail when the phone rang. She immediately jumped up and said, that may be for me, I'll get it. Nancy called the caller's voice when she picked up. Chief McGinnis here. Sorry if this is your dinner hour, but I thought you'd want to know immediately. The station wagon was reported stolen yesterday. It was found abandoned early this morning out near Fishwick. Hope that helps you. Oh, it does, Chief. Thanks for letting me know so promptly. Hanging up, Nancy returned quickly to the dining room. Ned, they found the station wagon out near Fishwick this morning. I'm about to go there now. Want to come? Sure thing. Please excuse me, Mrs. Gruen, Mr. Drew. He rose from the table. Nancy hastily apologized for interrupting the meal. Dad, Hannah, I'll explain it all when we get back. It's really urgent. I'm sorry. Please go on with your dinner. We'll get something later on while we're out. Nancy kissed her father, gave Hannah a hug, and rolled out of the room, followed by Ned. It was not yet 8 p.m. and still light out. Fortunately, the traffic was sparse, and Nancy drove as fast as the speed limit allowed to the river road. Then, out along the two-lane country road that led to Fishwick. I feel I just can't get out here fast enough, Ned, Nancy murmured anxiously. What do you think happened to her? I don't know. Maybe we should check the hospital first. You're right. If this turns out to be a fruitless trip, that's what we'll do. Fishwick was a seedy beach and community strung out along the riverbank. It's centered on a cafe, a gas station and general store, and a boating pier. A row of run-down-looking cottages completed the picture. After slowing to look around, Nancy pulled into the gas station. A leathery-faced man got up off his tilted-back chair. What'll it be, gas or bait? Neither, Nancy smiled at him. You look like a very observant man. The man responded with a pleased grin and a shrewd wink. Ain't much goes on around here gets by me. Why, you looking for someone? Yes, a sick woman. Two men brought her out here late yesterday in an old black station wagon. Did you notice them? Yep, that's the place. He pointed to a cottage half hidden among the trees. Do you know who lives there? Shucks, can't keep track. These places are rented by the day or the week. Nancy thanked him and drove on Ned to the cottage. When they knocked, no one answered, but suddenly a faint moan reached their ears. Ned, did you hear that? Nancy exclaimed. You bet I did. Her friend pushed his husky's shoulder to the door and pushed hard. The cheap lock soon gave way and the door flew open. Nancy gasped at the sight that met their eyes. On a bare cot laid Rose Harrod, tied and gagged. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.